welcome for Holistic Creative Chat. This one's going to be an audio recording. Today's guest is someone very near and dear to my own creative journey and heart. Lisa Sonora, artist, author, creative entrepreneur, global traveler, devoted to creativity, travel, and courage. Thank you for being with us, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Haley.
Yeah. So really what we're talking about with these chats is things that we love, you and me, Lisa, both, creative practice and healing. And what I like to begin with is to just have you give us an idea of what your creative practice is looking like in this season for you.
Great question. Because it does change and it evolves. And I think that's important for people to feel like if something's not working for them, it's time to change, like the seasons change. So, actually, I have one of my visual journals in front of me. And one thing I like to do from time to time is hand make a journal. And I go through this intuitive process. Actually, it is it's what I shared in my Spectrum workshop, if I can say that. If everybody here is in Spectrum or... But yeah, this process, the journal I'm holding in front of me is one that I filmed for the Spectrum course. And I use this process of making a journal. It's very intuitive. And I hold a question in mind of a particular challenge that I'm working with. And I let the journal shape, size, form, color, everything appear as it will. And so everyone is different. And then I use journaling prompts to go in and fill in the pages once the journal is made. So, and I just love working in this and find I'm doing a lot of, I always do a lot of reading of poetry and books. And I call it library divination, where I just pick a book off my shelf or pop open my Kindle and open to a random page. And that's one way of just accessing wisdom, kind of like an oracle, if you like oracle decks or something like that. But all of this points us back to what we need to know and inner wisdom. And I use this journal just to be really open to guidance and answers. And so I love to sit with it every morning and just look through the pages and take a few notes and see what else is arising. And I also do prayer and meditation practice as part of my creative practice to center myself in love. I think I can say that to your audience.
Absolutely.
I believe that our essential nature is love, and it is so key in having the courage to follow what we truly love to do, what we really want to make. So I really center myself in this knowing that I am love at my true essential nature, and that, I get a little emotional saying this. I don't know if I've ever told this to the world before, but that I feel that, that my work is about love, that if I'm coming from a loving place and I'm doing things that I love and I'm doing it in the spirit of love, that's my vocation and that's my livelihood and that's my higher purpose. So being able to center myself, no matter how busy I feel, like this is how I have to begin. And then when I open my computer, I'm also doing this pretty cool thing with an app. It's a Google app. It's free. It's called Momentum Dash. It's at Momentum Dash if you want to find them, or we can give a link.
Sure.
But it opens up your browser with a beautiful photo, and it has you put in a focus of the day. And I think the intention is that, you're supposed to focus on the big rocks, something you're going to do that day. But I use the focus as what's my spiritual intention and kind of my love focus. Like, what do I really want to be aware of today, specifically? And so I write my message in there. And then every time I open a new browser window, that flashes in front of me. And I've been taking screenshots of my momentum dash screen with my intention. And it's almost like a diary of its own. And sometimes I post those on Facebook with a little message.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just been enjoying that. And the enjoyment factor is so key for creative practice because, if you've ever tried to exercise, or for me, it's exercise, I'll just make it about me. If I've ever tried an exercise program and like going to the gym, like I hate going to the gym, I detest it, and it's not ever something I can stick with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one roundabout way I came upon creative practice is that it really has to be pleasurable and something you're looking forward to. So a lot of times I just really dread getting on the computer because I've worked on the computer, for my whole adult life. And the computer's always been work for me rather than this social interaction tool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, opening my laptop now and knowing that I'm going to get Momentum Dash really, I don't know, it just brings a little spark of joy into my day and having the beautiful picture in front of me. I mean, artists are so visual, so I think having that instead of just looking at the endless to-do list that's overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
to say, here's my focus. So that was a long answer to my creative practice,
I,
but
I love that, and even using the app, how it relates to the idea of intention setting, and how that's kind of like your anchor, back to your core intention, you know.
and
Um,
it's so easy to forget. Like we go off on these all rabbit holes when we're online and when we're doing our work, and then it's like I come back, it just comes back automatically, and it's
mhm.
wonderful. It's just delightful.
I'm gonna check it out. I will definitely include a link for people too. It sounds wonderful.
I'm sure the inventors didn't intend for it to be a spiritual, intentional tool, but it is.
Yeah, you can apply that anywhere, right? Hmm. So what do you? So I let's dive a little deeper. Like we want the enjoyment to be, what brings us, what the creative practice, how we keep coming back to it or what have you. But what do you do when you're not beginning from that place, that centered place of joy, or with that centered place of love, when you're working with other stressors and that sort of thing? How do you deal with that resistance? Do you resist your creative practice, or are you so engrossed in having had such a long standing creative practice that that's not as much of an issue for you now?
Well, I do have resistance. It shows up in different ways, but I don't resist practice.
Mm-hmm.
I will resist more completing a work product
Mm-hmm.
or um, that kind of thing. And then when I'm resisting creating my work product, it's almost like I've forgotten that I have a creative practice because um, the uh, the reality of creative work itself, making something new. I think of it as having teeth. Like you'll be in the jaws of the dragon when you're creating something new and you'll forget. Like it's like we go to sleep, we forget, like we get those feelings of like this is impossible, I can't do this, I'm not equipped, who cares? For me it's like a lot of voices of self-doubt and who gives a crap and
Mm-hmm.
why am I doing this and it's so hard and then it's like, oh, I've forgotten that. So when I get in that place, that's when I go back to my creative practice. And I do things like write longhand, paint, play, do things that are really pleasurable, work in my journals, which is very pleasurable. And so if I'm working on a new class, for example, or a new book, and I get stuck working on the computer on it or filming or whatever I'm doing, I'll just go back to my journals, and my journals are where I do my creative practice
Mm-hmm.
and use the tools there to, and it always works. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just amazing what happens.
I find that too. I find that I'll forget sometimes because I'm a bit of a workaholic, but then you get to that point where you feel funky or whatever. You're not getting through it. It's like, trudging through a swampland or something. But then when I go, oh yeah, okay, and then I go take that break of self-care in my journals, it's like whatever it is that I was trying to solve or fix or make happen in my, productive type work with class creation or writing, even for, offerings, that sort of thing. it all just like, it's like it opens the channels again because I let my hands get into the paint or into the collage. It just, yeah. And then it streamlines it. Everything in the productive end of the work that I do with others, and it's service work or even work on my website or what have you, all that starts to flow much quicker, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So do you have anything that's showing up currently in your work that you're currently learning with or growing with in your creative practice?
Can you ask me something else too? Because I'm not sure where to go with
Mm-hmm.
that question.
Yeah, just any themes or that sort of thing that may be showing up currently in in your practice. However you want to approach that is fine. It could be like, are you? It could be just even, well, you mentioned the words before, but is there like a repetitive theme, like using quotes, or is there a repetitive imagery, or is there a repetitive sort of block that keeps showing up for you? Or something that's really fueling your practice right now?
Well, I'm kind of thinking of this two ways, which I think I'm struggling with which way to go. I heard what's showing up in my work, and then I heard what's showing up in my creative practice, and I kind of think of those as two different things.
Mm.
Um, so,
Well, let's go with the
mm,
creative practice.
hmm. For my creative practice, which is really personal and private, it's not stuff I share,
Mm-hmm.
in the world. Um, I've been working with, and I actually just blogged about this recently, so I'm comfortable telling you and your
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
fans and all the people listening. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been really vulnerable about this, but what I made this wisdom journal for, this journal I talked about at the beginning of the recording. Um, I made it to explore some health issues that I have, longstanding issues related to fatigue and chronic pain. I even hesitate to put words or anything on it, like what it is. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what it is actually. I've had decades of therapy and medical treatment and trying all sorts of things from God, like everything, okay, everything,
Mm-hmm.
trying to feel better, trying to get my energy. I mean, I'm talking like everything from shamanic soul retrieval journeys to, medicine from the traditional world and everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a sense that my problem, if you will, or challenge, the thing that's helped me most heal and to have moments where I have good energy and can do work and feel not in so much pain is the spiritual work I do,
Mm-hmm.
the creative practice, and I include my creative practice in that. But I kind of hit a wall recently where it's like, wow, this low energy stuff, it's just hard to live life around it. It keeps me very isolated socially because I have so much time and bandwidth really to work and with my family. And after that, there's nothing left. And then, so how do I recuperate my energy and have energy to do my work in the world? So that's what I'm playing with and working with in the journal. And it's amazing the kind of answers that have been coming to me about this, including the idea to blog about it and just to say to people, this is a reality of actually what I'm dealing with, and not for pity or anything like that, but I'm just curious, because the physical challenges I have dealt with are such a huge part of my daily experience. And it's like, well, am I just rejecting this huge part of myself? Now I'm getting emotional again. rejecting this huge part of myself because I think it's not acceptable to talk about in the
Hmm.
world. It's not like I've felt like I've had to hide it, but I think I don't know if my blog or my work is the appropriate place to bring it.
Hmm.
But I'm experimenting, and I really feel like as a creative entrepreneur, my one of the things that I'm really willing to do is put myself out there, be vulnerable, take the same risks that I ask my students to take, and to experiment, uh, get over on the work side of things. That really requires a lot of experiment because who the hell knows what it takes to be a creative entrepreneur, what it is, and how you do it. It's brand new. We're all figuring it out and
Yeah.
making a lot of mistakes. So that's where it's going, and it segues into the work, which is doing some new work around the creative entrepreneur stuff, with trainings and more workshops and stuff like that.
Hmm. Thank you.
So one feeds the other.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally get that in my own experience as well. And just, I want to just honor you and thank you for sharing about that. Because, what you're saying, I know just even my background as a nurse, this is not uncommon. This is something that I know that many, many people can relate to on some level. These physical issues that many people face, that, and you put it very well, it's just somehow become something that we don't talk about. Um, Yet it has a very real impact on everything and everything that we do and the way that we show up. And so I just want to honor you for acknowledging that and sharing your truth and some of your story about that, and really, taking that step. That's a vulnerable step, to start to share that stuff and say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is my truth. And allowing other people to relate through that, and to feel, what I know is that people will feel not so alone, with their own experiences that are similar with that too.
Yeah,
On
what I found is that what I was really looking for, I asked people specifically
hmm.
to, if they wanted to leave a comment, not to leave me medical advice.
Right.
Different posts like remedies for fatigue. Let's hear them all. Um, because people automatically will say, "Oh, did you get your hormones checked or whatever?" It's like, "Oh my God, you have no idea how many times."
Yeah.
Like I'm one of these people that good news, bad news. I get everything checked and everything's normal. So what the hell is wrong with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's nothing that any test has been able to fix and or tell me, "Oh, this is what's the matter with you." Like
And this
I'd
is
be
what you
really
should do. Yeah.
blood results that said something like that instead of "You're fine."
Hmm.
How come I don't feel fine?
Yeah.
But I did ask for people to say, this is part of my journey. I'm just exploring. I have no idea where this is going, but what would you want me to write about
Hmm.
regarding the subject, if anything? Like, what do you want to know?
Hmm.
And so that's what people are leaving comments about.
That's wonderful.
What
I'll
they,
leave a link to that post as well, Lisa. Because
please,
I think
yeah.
it's a great place for exploration, and I love that you're stepping into talking about that a little bit and inquiring from others, to share a little bit of their story or what their questions are around that.
Hmm.
And it leads beautifully into the question I ask everybody for this chat series, and it's, how do you define healing today?
Remembering who we really are.
Hmm.
When I remember who I am, I remember what's real. When I remember who I really am and what's real, I can connect more to why I'm here, my higher purpose, and and that feels like a real good trump card to play, if you will, in the face of the very physical realities and limitations and challenges that everybody has. We all have. I have on a daily basis.
Hmm.
Bills, relationships, deadlines, work, not work, all of the stuff that we're trying to figure out. Um, healing has just been a huge part of my journey all along. So, I mean, I'm kind of like connecting the dots a little bit here. Like
Mm-hmm.
something just occurred to me. Well, it's interesting. I told you about this healing exploration I'm doing right now as part of my creative practice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you think about things from like kind of like take a big bird's eye view or a big planet view, like if we could rise above everything and think that we're spiritual beings having this human experience, and that what if we pick our ideal situations and circumstances and challenges to learn what we came here to do so that we can give the gift. Um, I have this whole book that I haven't published yet called A Wound is a Door.
Mm-hmm.
And it is all about healing from like my childhood experience, which was really traumatic. And there was just a ton of physical and sexual violence that made up my childhood, and foster homes and different, you know, like I just kind of like to sum it up, like everything bad that could have happened happened. And I
Mm-hmm.
survived. And I used my art to help me survive that. And that's what formed the body of my work. And it reminds me of another thing. Martha Beck, whose work I really love. I love all of her books, but I think it was in her book, Finding Your Way in a Brave New World or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about what she thinks of as like a shamanic illness,
Yeah.
which is a lot of healers and therapists and artists, people who are bringing work to the world in that way, that they're often deeply wounded or exhausted or dealing with physical challenges, including her. She shares about her own.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making a mental note to go back and read that book.
It's a wonderful book. I've read it too, and I deeply resonated with that as well. She really acknowledges the trials and tribulations and challenges of childhood, whether it be through, trauma or illness or what have you, but as almost an initiation into the Wayfinder's path. Yeah. And
Nothing I would recommend for anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But apparently, I mean, Wayne Dyer, someone else who I read a lot and really love, he grew up in foster homes too during a period of his childhood. And he put it so beautifully. I can't remember now exactly what it was in response to, but he said, well, if I came here to learn how to be resourceful and self-sufficient and empower others to be resourceful and self-sufficient, like in charge of their own psychology and beingness, right? I mean, he started all this back in the 70s. He said, well, it's like the universe said, well, let's get your ass in a foster home. That'll be perfect.
This is where you're really going to learn what you need to know to do what you're coming to do. I love that.
So, and so, yeah.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for having one of these chats with us. And I'm so thrilled that you are part of Spectrum 2015. Your workshop is Aladdin's Magic Art Journal. I've had the sneak peek of it so far, and it's fantastic. All the work you do with people is fantastic. It is so apparent that you live and love your creative practice so deeply, just by the way you share and inspire others into their own practices. And I also believe you're coming to the States in June, right?
I am.
Yeah, and you'll have some workshops available then, and you have online offerings as well. And I'll be putting, of course, links to your website and that wonderful app you told us about. So,
yeah, and if people really are curious about creative practice, I do teach a whole online class about that.
Mm-hmm.
It is really it'll help people if they're really struggling with that.
Absolutely. And
That.
one of the things I admire most about you is your ability to articulate about creative practice in a way that helps people get to the doing of it. So,
Oh, for week one. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I love to share that with people, because the most feedback I get from people is it just changed their life in so many dramatic ways, not just on their creativity or business, but
Mm-hmm.
relationships.
Everything.
Huge,
Yeah.
everything. It
Yeah.
impacts everything. It's it's just like when we start going there, and showing up for ourselves, something really starts unlocking.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again, and thank you everybody for listening in.